Are you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics?
Then you're in the right place.
Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This
is the Robozone podcast
with your host, Pete Ekman. The Robozone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 24th episode of the Robozone podcast. This podcast is for Tuesday, July 18th. In this podcast, we talk about IRI, which just happened over the last weekend. We're going to talk to some EngiNerds and some killer bees, so I hope you enjoy the podcast. But before we go to the interview, let's hear from our other sponsor.
The Robozone podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
Hi and welcome everyone. This is the Robozone podcast. With me tonight, I have Jim Zondag from Team 33, the Killer Bees, and I have Brandi Bollinger and Clint Bollinger from 2337, the EngiNerds. And tonight we're going to discuss IRI. So welcome, guys. How are you guys feeling tonight?
Doing really good.
Great.
So
awesome. Thanks, Pete.
IRI is over with. You guys are back in good old Michigan in the Mitten State. So tell us a little bit of what happened at IRI this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can start, Pete, if you like. I mean, it was great. Actually, for us, I think this is the 16th IRI that the Team 33 has gone to. And it's probably the most competitive ever. Again, it's starting to take on a little bit more, I think, along with the split championship. We also have kind of a split all-star game now. The Cheesy Champs has taken most of the West Coast contingent out, but it's still extremely competitive from a lot of the teams from Michigan, from Ontario, from Indiana, and various parts of all over the country, with teams coming from as far away as Idaho and Mexico to come to the IRI. So, yeah, it was really great. Clint, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, the competition, per usual, I think our team has been to IRI 7 times in the 10 years we've been around. So we probably could have won our first year, but we didn't even know what it was our rookie year. So we maybe missed an opportunity then. But yeah, I mean, this year and this game played a lot different at IRI this season. I think the game was actually played the way that the game design committee thought it was going to be played.
Can you expand on that for us, Clint?
Well, just because, I mean, a lot of times in Michigan, you would go to an event, even in some of the divisions, and you would only have 1 or 2 shooters. At IRI this weekend, every match almost had someone who was able to shoot or score some fuel in a certain way.
At the Michigan State Championship, we actually had an opportunity to talk with Dom Bosey, and he talked about that his favorite aspect of the game this year was watching the fuel fly. And I think that from the very beginning, I think that the game design committee had the intention that fuel would be flying everywhere from the first match. And I think it was a difficult task, and a lot of teams didn't go for that at the beginning. They were running gears. So it was finally great for us to be able to see not only just gear runners that were strong robots, but also see a myriad of robots that were throwing some fuel around as well.
Yeah, and really to comment on that, we counted in our scouting information 23 robots that we would consider shooters of some caliber, and those are robots who could do more than just the 10 preloads. So we had 68 teams there, so more than a third of the total teams were what we would classify as shooter robots. So I think, like Brandi said, it was really, I think it was played closer to what the original vision of the game design committee hoped for, but more so than anything that happened in the regular season.
And Clint, what were the rule changes for this event compared to a regular event during the normal season?
The one thing that they changed was normally teams, were given the freebie gear up on top of the airship. That gear was more or less just taken away. So teams, in order to get the 4 rotors at IRI, would have to get 13 gears. Because of this, it actually favored a lot of the shooters a little bit more than gear runners, because it allowed for the gear runners to have a harder time to get to 4 rotors to get that ranking point, And because of that, it made it where matches where shooters, it's the tiebreaker. The other alliance might only get 3 rotors because they didn't get that last gear. And as long as the other team got 41 KPA, that's going to beat 3 rotors every day. So that was one of them. The other change they made was to the retrieval zone. They made it where anytime an opponent hit the opponent in their retrieval zone, it would be a 5-point penalty. It would not be a tech foul. And it could happen multiple times, so you could keep racking up these 5-point penalties. But if it was repeated or I think it was strategic or for extended time, it would then turn into a tech foul. So it kind of prevented basically what happened in Houston, where a team can rack up 150 points of penalties just for having a robot die in that zone.
Right.
Yeah, Clint, did you see them give that tech foul to anyone this weekend?
I don't think I saw it once. I saw some other fouls. I saw some other fouls, but that I thought were weird that they weren't calling until limbs.
I believe that there was a match where there was upwards of 80 points in penalties for a robot dying in the retrieval zone. I think that was just repeated attempts of another robot trying to get into their load zone and making contact with that robot. But 85 points for those penalties is still a far cry. I mean, that's just over what 3 tech fouls would be, which we saw frequently in matches throughout the regular season.
Yes. The call that I found weird, like I really didn't hear about it, and I thought it happened like once or twice. I know it happened to our alliance in the eliminations, was launching a gear. They gave some yellow cards out for people launching gears, and like I said, for ours it was called against OP Robotics. They had a jammed gear, so they just were trying to get the gear out of their system, and they considered that launching the gear. Instead of...
By launching the gear, you mean it went a fair distance?
Yeah, like, so one of the rules is that you can't launch a gear anytime, but the way they were calling it, sorry, I'm getting like confused because I'm trying to remember how the ref called it. Because like if you were by the airship and trying to put it on the peg, that's not considered launching because you're scoring the gear onto the peg. But if you were anywhere away from the ship and you have an active mechanism that causes the gear to leave your robot, that's launching. The rule, my understanding of the rule is like its originally purpose is to ensure you're not taking gear and throwing it full field down to the other end of the zone. That's why they don't want you to launch gears. It's not because they want you.
I think that's the spirit of why the rule was created, and I think the whole season it was enforced. Probably every time it was ever given out this year, it was not given out for the original intention of the creation of that foul, and there were a couple of those this weekend.
Yeah.
So if you gotta go, because we've all seen gears get stuck in robots, right? So if you spun your robot too hard and it came falling out, they would assess that foul against you.
Probably not actually, because you didn't have an active mechanism do it. The
Gotcha.
word they were saying was active mechanism. So like on our robot, when we release our gear, we have an active mechanism in terms of it actively opens, but there's nothing physically launching that gear out. Like, so a lot of teams have like these cylinders that shove the gear onto the peg. Ours, we open the gates and it just falls out under gravity.
Okay, so if it's, I understand the peg. I've seen those pegs that shoot out and help assist the gear onto the peg. So I can understand that. So were there any other big fouls or anything really interesting that you guys didn't see during this season?
No, not really. I mean, there were a few. There were the typical, some fouls and yellow and red cards for pilots reaching out the airship, or there was one red, I think, given for removing the center gear one time that I saw. But in general, I thought the removal of the tech foul, which was the key annoying foul, I thought for the in the regular season, the essential removal of that foul made the game play in a lot more penalty-free way. That was a good addition because the corner by the loading zone, by the retrieval zone, is always crowded. Sometimes you get 3 and 4 robots over there. So during the regular season, getting spurious tech fouls in that region when nobody was trying to do anything wrong was too common.
I think it made the matches play a lot cleaner. I think it made it where you weren't losing matches because someone got 2 tech fouls and that's 50 points. They would have gotten 10 points in penalties, and maybe you got your center gear auton worked, so that was 20 points. So you still win the match even though your partner hit the guy twice in that zone. So like I think it made the game flow a lot smoother, and the people that won matches are the people that should have won those matches.
So,
Absolutely. I think every team always goes to IRI to play in and watch some amazing matches, and this year's IRI definitely did not disappoint.
well, and to expand on that comment you just made, Brandi, I heard that there was a new world record for scoring at this event, right?
Yeah, I think it was like something ridiculous, like 558 points or some. That match was just amazing to watch. Like from the very second that it started to the very second it ended, it seemed like every robot was doing everything that they could possibly do to score points. And there was fuel flying everywhere, and it was just awesome.
Good word, awesome. So, the Festival of Champions here is in 2 weeks, right? And that's going to be at around F.I.R.S.T headquarters. And I even read today that one of the teams from Houston couldn't make it, so they pulled in a competitor from the losing alliance from the finals to fill in, which is interesting. I feel sorry for that team that couldn't make it because that's a huge experience that they could do. So I wanted to pick your guys' brains. What do you think? If it were 2 weeks away, who do you think's going to win it, Jim? Do you think it's going to be the Houston Alliance, or do you think it's going to be the St. Louis Alliance?
I think St. Louis, just the St. Louis, the Strike Force Cheesy Poofs combination was pretty unstoppable. They just had more shooters, I think, than what we saw in Houston. And again, Strike Force really had their game on this weekend at the IRI. They were number 1 seed pretty much all the way through. They were one of the teams on the Alliance that put up the 556 world record new score. I imagine the Cheesy Poofs will be at full strength. So you have 2 of the very best robots in the world, I think, on the St. Louis Alliance, and I think they're going to win.
You agree, Clinton?
I do for very similar reasons. I think 2767, honestly, I think they're one of the best teams in Michigan this season. The way I like to describe it is, like I said, I love them. No offense to them. I don't think they're necessarily number 1 in everything, but I think they're number 2 or number 3 in everything. Does that make sense? So they're not the best person at maybe hopper auton, but they're up there with the great teams that have a great hopper auton. So they're at the top of all the categories, and it just makes 2767 an amazing support robot to any Alliance member. And Cheesy Poofs, they need that person to be able to do center gear and shoot. And what I think is going to happen is I think that Alliance is going to be able to do 2 rotors in auton, trigger the hopper, shoot balls, and almost get 40 kp out of auton. And if the other Alliance can't get 2 rotors plus 40 kp out of auton, they got a lot of work to make.
And we can't forget the Lightning Robotics team out of Canton. That's a 862 because they're a Michigan team. So we want them to show very well because we're all from Michigan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you guys really think there was a huge difference between Houston and St. Louis? And I watched, in the past couple of weeks, I did watch a couple of the past the matches for Houston compared to St. Louis. And we're all in St. Louis, so we have a very vivid account of what happened at St. Louis. But do you think there's really a difference between those 2 regions when it comes to the finals? Jim, we'll start with you.
Not necessarily. If you look at some of the best robots there, I think really when it just comes down to it, my opinion is the St. Louis Alliance who ended up winning, I think, is stronger than the one from Houston. But you still got to play it out. This weekend I was the number 1 Alliance looked like they had more strength going into the playoffs at the IRI. And they ended up coming in second. So, you've only got 2 alliances in this Festival of Champions contest. So it could go either way. I think overall, I think the pool is deeper overall in St. Louis, there's a lot of great teams, from Michigan, from Ontario, from the original zones in the Pacific Northwest. I'm sorry, in the Northeast, and so I think and then we had some good teams come up from Texas to St. Louis. So I think overall, the number of quality teams in St. Louis was higher for an event of a similar size.
So the other thing that I think the Houston team has a slight disadvantage is that, what is it, 10-11, right? I think was their
Crush, the Crush.
They're not necessarily a fuel bot, right? So they can't shoot. I mean, I think if you look back at in their division, their pressure was fairly low. Meaning, I don't even know if they have a shooter. I wasn't there. So based off of that data, they're not a shooter. 27-67 can fill up a hopper, and right before they climb, being right underneath their rope, they can put a stream of balls up and put them in. So I think that's going to cause it where what people are talking about is pressure is going to be king. Whoever can score the most. I think 973 and 254 are very comparable in terms of their shooting capabilities. They probably practice with each other all the time and practice on each other's, on Cheesy Poop's field. So they know what they can do, but 27-67 has that additional bonus that's going to give them more fuel, more pressure to be able to come out ahead and be the tiebreaker.
Well, not only that, but being in competition over the weekend kind of shakes the cobwebs out of the drive team, and it keeps them fresh, right? Because sometimes, and it's still 2 weeks from now before they're even competing again. It's not like they have a whole event to shake the cobwebs out. I don't know, and I'll try to find out more information on how that structure is for their competition. I know that competition not till Sunday or Saturday, but I can't imagine they have 10 matches to get ready for the final match.
No, agree, and I think that is an advantage certainly for the St. Louis squad, right? 27-67 just got done playing a full tournament, and they were really playing at the top of their game, right? They were number one seed and just about won the event and set a world record on the way. So, I think they'll probably be more on than the Houston Alliance.
Agree.
Okay, so now let's talk about, I'm going to change subjects on you guys. So now we're in the down season, right? Officially. IRI is done. Kettering kickoff is not until it's the 9th of September, right? So what are you guys doing with your teams between now and Kettering kickoff, or to the point of January when we find out the new game?
So for our team, right, we always do a variety of different things in the summer, right? And you're right, Pete. We're pretty much up until here, we're really doing continuity on the previous season, right? Because we do the mark a couple of weeks ago at the end of June, and then we do the IRI in the middle of July, and then we pretty much start transitioning into future mode, for over the coming months now. So with our team, we usually do a variety of things. Number one, we always, we work on VEX. So we have VEX teams that we run. The VEX kickoff was back in April, and so we have a group of 5 VEX teams that are currently active, and we'll probably be adding a few more who will be working on robots every week for VEX. And I know the nerds do the same thing. We do a bunch of R&D projects where a lot of times we will build things that we want for our team that we don't have time to do during the regular season. So we have a couple of invention projects that we're working on that involve CAD and fabrication and robot testing and things like that. That'll play out over the next probably 3 months. And then we do organizational stuff, fundraising, sponsor drives, and all the business side of it tends to get a lot done. If not enacted, at least formulated what we're going to do so we can hit the ground running in the fall as soon as the kids come back to school in September.
And Clinton and Brandi, what are you guys doing with the EngiNerds between now and Kettering kickoff and or January?
So similar to the Killer Bees, we do run VEX in the off season as well. We do have a really large high school. We're about 2,700 kids at Grand Blanc High School. So this time of year, we actually went in May to our 8th grade robotics teams and recruited 8th graders that have actually been attending our meetings already since before school got out. So we actually put our new members through 5th 15-point training exercise where they're learning how to use CAD, they're wiring, they're creating working drawings, they're working on scouting, they're working on media, they're working on a ton of different things to get themselves acclimated from the middle school level to the high school level. And we use the VEX Robotics program to do that as well. And then our returning members are actually acting as mentors. So we run 6 VEX Robotics teams in the off season. And Clinton and I work with the captains on our robotics team and actually appoint a team captain for each one of our 6 teams. And we really try very hard to take our students who are going into their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year on the team and really put them in leadership positions that allow them to excel and find exactly where they want to be on our team. One of the things that the EngiNerds do is we break down our team into subsections. So this time of year right now, we are looking for the students who are going to be the leaders for the upcoming F.R.S.T season. So we go to IRI was actually our 7th robotics event with our robot this year, I think. And then we'll also be going to the Kettering Kickoff 2nd weekend in September, and then the Bloomfield Girls event in November. So we're keeping busy. We'll run our robot through the ringer, I think, by the end of it. Hopefully it'll make it to the girls event. It's kind of a EngiNerds tradition that the girls event we barely roll our robot on and off the field by the end of that. So we've got demos planned at our local farmers market. And then one special thing that we do for our partners is we actually do partner demo days. So any one of our sponsors for our robotics team that we refer to as our partners, we actually call them all up and send them a formal invitation for us to come to their facility and do a demo there. So you'll be seeing us at Tropical Smoothie in Grand Blanc, the Grand Blanc Farmers Market, Big Apple Bagels in Grand Blanc, and Card Table Republic in Davison. And all between now and the time probably the weather starts to cool off a bit.
So much for downtime for you guys.
Yeah, we actually meet 2 days a week at least throughout the whole entire summer. Then on top of extra build days for VEX. And we actually run mock versions of the skills challenge for VEX at the robot space up in Lapeer. So we take our entire team to the robot space and do mock trials. But this year we actually decided to get a field at our facility. So we'll be running our mock trials for the VEX Robotics at our facility in our back room. So
And let's not forget one key thing, and that's next weekend is RoboCon, right? And I know the EngiNerds are going to be at RoboCon, and I know not only myself from Robozone, but also Lauren Plant's going to be there. I got him on board to come to RoboCon, and we're going to have a booth so we can talk to people and we can catch up with mentors. Jim, are you guys going to RoboCon this year?
No, unfortunately, I'm out of town, and it didn't work into the agenda for any of our team mentors this year.
Okay.
We are going to the Maker Fair the following week, where we're going to be at the Maker Fair at Henry Ford for 2 days the following week.
Oh, good. And I will make sure to get that information put in the show notes just to keep people going and keep people excited. And then right around the corner, before we know it, I think we're, 7 weeks or 8 weeks away from Kettering Kickoff, which is going to be kind of cool.
Yeah, the EngiNerds are always really excited for Kettering Kickoff. We've been on the planning committee for Kettering Kickoff for our entire existence. Clinton and I actually started helping out with Kettering Kickoff in 2007 when we were still mentors for Team 1243. So this will actually be the EngiNerds' 10th Kettering Kickoff that we've gone to. So we always love to go to Kettering Kickoff because it is such a great opportunity for teams, especially teams that are just getting started, to really get a sense of what it's like. I know once school gets started, parents and coaches and teachers that are new to this, you just cannot explain to them well enough what F.I.R.S.T Robotics is like. They have to go there. They have to be at an event. They have to see the robots and see the fuel flying and hear the music and see the dancing and walk in the pits to really get a sense of what F.I.R.S.T Robotics does for the students and the community. And Kettering Kickoff is a phenomenal example of that. And the support that Kettering University gives to F.I.R.S.T Robotics is just unmatched anywhere.
I will second that because they're the title sponsor for the podcast. So I love Bob. I love Kettering. But you're right, Brandi. That's a great point because you guys all know I'm starting a new team. I don't even have a team number yet. I'm still waiting for my team number But in the meantime, I have people like the FridgeBot, Scott Stapp from BridgeBot said if I get some kids that have already enrolled on my team, he would allow some of those kids to mentor with his team over the weekend to start learning it, because I'm starting from scratch. Not one kid on my team is going to have previous experience with F.I.R.S.T. So I'm using it as a catalyst to not only get the principal from the school is going to be there, from Fowlerville Schools is going to be there, and we're going to invite as many school staff as we can, and the school board to come and watch and get the kids invited and excited. And hopefully by the time 2 weeks after that's my sign up. So I'm hoping that convinces anyone that's on the fence that robotics is something we want to do. So you would agree with that, wouldn't you, Brandi?
Yep, I think that that Kettering Kickoff is a great example to do that. I know each year we invite our superintendent and our principal out, and they almost always come out to this event. We also do a demo at the farmers market in Grand Blanc, as I said the weekend before, and we make flyers and hand them out to try to gain more people in the community's interest in robotics, because I feel like we're kind of like a hidden gem up here in Grand Blanc, because we don't meet at our school, so it's a little bit more difficult for us to get out in the community, and doing things like Kettering Kickoff always is great for us. So, and something new that I'm actually going to be doing at Kettering Kickoff this year is I've been coordinating with Bob Nichols, who's the F.I.R.S.T robotics coordinator at Kettering, and I'm actually going to be teaching some workshops that are going to be particularly beneficial for new teams on Friday evening. I'm going to be teaching some workshops on developing your student expectations in team contract documents, and a little bit of organizational techniques that'll allow you to get more parents involved earlier on your team. Traditionally, I've taught these workshops at our day after kickoff workshops, but this year I'm going to try to get it in a little bit earlier so parents and mentors on teams can kind of get a little bit of a jump start to their season before it even starts.
When you get that schedule, Brandi, make sure you get it to me, and I'll make sure to attach it to the podcast and announce it the next couple of weeks, so that we can get more people coming to that.
Sure.
Jim, are you guys going to Kettering Kickoff this year?
Yeah, actually, we've been to every single Kettering Kickoff. It's the original Michigan off-season competition. This will be the 18th one. We always go. It's one of my favorite competitions of the year, and yeah, we wouldn't miss it.
So hopefully the robots stay together, or at least you can repair anything that you guys have experienced from this last weekend to get ready for that competition.
I have a feeling that we are going to be on 2337. We might be scavenging some more parts off of our practice back here pretty soon.
It really is kind of interesting, because this has happened, the migration to districts and all of the off seasons that have come up over the last few years. It's not uncommon for us to get to 10 or more events per year on the robots now, and they really do start to wear out near the end of the season. And you sort of have to design them with durability in mind nowadays compared to the old days where you would only play 20 or 30 matches. It's not uncommon to have 150 or more matches on a competition robot now.
Leads to a modular design, right? That we can just interchange parts and get things back up and running.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, the other thing is even not necessarily, it doesn't have to be modular, just making sure that your robot is serviceable. Make sure you don't cover up that one bolt to be able to remove a motor that could die late in the season with another mechanism. So if you have to change that quickly, you got to remove the one mechanism to remove that motor. Trying to think about that during your build process, I think is important, every year. And the more you play and the harder you beat up your robot, the more important that is.
Little nuggets of gold there, Clinton.
One thing that I think we learned early on in our team's existence was also to make it very easily accessible for us to change our wheels. We've maintained pretty good repair on our robot this year, and our wheels have been switched out quite a few times. So that's one thing for new teams starting. Make sure that if you're going to be using your robot a lot, that you have the ability to switch out your wheels.
We usually change our wheels usually at the beginning of the event or right before we go to an event. So we have a fresh set of wheels on it. And that's, of course, dependent on what kind of wheels you use. The wheels we're using, we only have 2 traction wheels on our robot this season. and each wheel they're like $6. So to replace the wheels, it costs us $12. If you look at how much the robot costs and what registration fees are, that $12 is nothing.
Right.
Yeah, we actually do the same thing, Clint. So this year, I was changing the traction wheels on the robot right before every tournament. So yeah, same thing.
And the other reason we do that is for us, our autonomous has changed slightly when we change those wheels, because like if you go through the competition, you're making adjustments match to match for your autonomous, and what ends up happening is your wheels start to wear, and you got to keep making adjustments as you go through that event. And then when you put a new set of wheels on, it totally changes your autonomous. So we don't want to tune in on autonomous halfway through the competition, swap the wheels. Now our set points and everything for autonomous are totally different.
We have the exact same concerns, and that's a big reason why we do it too.
So I got one more question for you guys, and I want to thank you guys before I ask this question for giving up your time on a Sunday night. It's the summer. You guys just got back less than, I'd say, 12 to 16 hours ago from IRI. So I want to thank you guys all for jumping on with me tonight. But Jim, the number one question I'm asked by kids when I talk about next year's competition is there going to be water involved? Do you think we're going to have a water game?
No, we won't have a water game. I can tell you, as one of the facilities coordinators for F.I.R.S.T in Michigan, our venue selection criteria would have to change drastically if we have a water game.
How about an element of water?
Yeah, it's called an inner tube.
Exactly.
Well,
So
for the team that loaded in on Thursday at IRI, everybody got to play a water game. It pretty much torrential downpour. When I was walking into
the parking lot, my van was in 6 inches of water, and there were vehicles stranded all over the city.
Good on you guys that the robots, I mean, that just shows good designs for you guys. You kind of waterproof that you guys could go through the competition.
Yeah.
Well, again, I want to thank you guys for coming on the podcast. I look forward to seeing you guys. If anything, I know I'll see Clinton and Brandi here at RoboCon this coming weekend. Jim, we look forward to seeing you not only on the field but in. I've been asked literally. I'm not fluffing egos. They've asked me when they're going to see you back on like YouTube or on the TV or something like that. So I said it's coming. Don't worry. We'll get you back out there. So
we'll schedule something. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll do little tidbits. But thank you guys for jumping online with me tonight. I'm going to sign off and start editing. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, Pete.
Again, I'd like to thank Jim Zondag from the Killer Bees and Clinton and Brandi Bollinger from 2337, the EngiNerds out of Grand Blanc, Michigan. Don't forget, RoboCon is this coming weekend in Lapeer, Michigan. If you have the availability, please come out to RoboCon. Lauren Plant from the TV show Robozone, and as well as myself, will be out there interviewing people, as well as you'll get to see some great exhibits. So don't forget about that. And keep in mind, the Festival of Champions is next weekend. So let's see who's going to take home a blue banner. Is it going to be the Houston or is it going to be the St. Louis Alliances?
The Robozone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world. Thanks for listening to the Robozone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at robozonetv.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.